Well, hey there YouTube, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. For those of you who don't know me, I am a takatapui living with multiple dynamic disabilities, and I'm here to educate and to create community. Hit, like and subscribe and all that, you know the drill. You'll notice I did not introduce myself with my name just then, because that is the entire content of this video, is discussing that thing, my name, which, as you can see from my corny little t-shirt that I made for an Instagram post, I have changed to Lou. So yeah, my new name is Lou. It is not my legal name yet, but it will be shortly. Just got to go through that legal process over the next few months. But let's try and summarize the story behind this decision in, longer form. So, because those of you who've known me since before 2017, you'll know that over the years, as I've tried to reconcile my gender identity and my traumatic history, I've tried on I've tried on a few names over the years. And I can say that none of them stuck because none of them felt right. Just like my birth name has not felt right my entire life. I think I was about 4 years old when I first started asking to change it. But I never did change it because I never quite found the right name and the right reason. And at just about 30 years old now, I have finally found the right name, the right reason, the right timing. So I'm just gonna explain that all to you. And I'll start with this. Being non-binary is easier when you're a child. No one minds small children revolting against the gender binary, right? Like, you've got little girls playing in the sandpit, climbing trees, racing truck. You've got little boys painting pictures and baking cakes and dressing up. It's just ordinary. No one questions it. In fact, it's even encouraged. And so, because the gender binary doesn't really exist in the same way in childhood, it's easier to be non-binary. In fact, probably wouldn't even pick it up. But then kids start approaching puberty, and once sex drive becomes a part of the conversation, in particular assigned female at birth, kids will be plunged headfirst into the icy waters of being eternally a sexualized object. And those gender binaries are really thrown into overdrive once sex drive becomes part of the conversation, right? Like, it's very much prescribed the way that girls are supposed to be and prescribed the way that boys are supposed to be, which is a real shame. I really, really wish it wasn't that way, but that's the dominance of heterosexuality, right? Boys chase girls, girls chase boys. Isn't that the saying? So I always knew I was gay because that was obvious. Like, it's a pretty simple equation. Do you like boys? Do you like girls? Or do you like everybody? And right from the age of like 13, 14, I was like, I like girls. It's a very simple equation. But my little note here, the dissonant, demoralizing, dysphoric depravity I felt about being a girl had the volume maxed out by the time I was in high school. But I didn't really even know what that dysphoria was. I didn't have a word for it. I didn't have a framework for it. I had no idea what was so wrong with me that because I didn't know what the problem was, I couldn't fix it, and it was eating me up. And that's part of the reason that I had my severe mental breakdown and spent ages 16 to 21 in psychiatric hospitals. It was in one of those psychiatric hospitals though when I met a wāhine irawhiti, a trans woman. She wasn't hugely popular in the ward, but I really liked her. I had a lot of time for her. She made sense to me, and apparently I made sense to her because she was the first person who helped me understand that the wrongness that I felt within myself was the wrongness that tangata irawhiti, trans people, feel. And she gently offered some of the ways I could take action to alleviate that pain. She suggested changing the way I dress. She suggested changing the way I do my hair. She suggested changing my name or wearing a binder. Just the very basics. She's like, try it out, see how it feels, because she told me that she saw Caitlin on the outside, Lauren on the inside. Caitlin, this very image-conscious, fashionista, hyper-artistic, expressive, eccentric girl, versus Lawrence, who was more even-tempered, who was much more masculine, who was big into sport and did a lot of writing and reflecting, and was just comfortable in his own skin. Now, she saw these two parts of me, and she suggested that I give the Laurent part of me, just to loosely call it that, more time of day. And I tried to be the Lawrence that she saw for a while, but in terms of my identity, I would have to learn what it meant to be non-binary, and I would also have to give up the beautiful simplicity of being a binary transgender person. Oh, how much easier it would be if I was just a trans man. Maybe not, but it would certainly be easier to explain to people. So yeah, from then on, like much like the medical and social models of disability, they allow us to shift perspective to see that the problem is not in us, but in the world. Discovering that I was trans shifted my perspective to see that I was not the problem. I'm not problem. So this brings us to about 2017, and at that time I was already trying on names, and I started the search for my gender, for the right name, for my identity as a whole. I had to broaden my horizons, physical, social, emotional, and spiritual, and journey outwards towards those horizons to learn a lot about myself before I could come to any kind of calm, rational, wise mind identity within myself. I had to go out and I had to live. I had to experiment. I had to make mistakes. I had to face the truth of what my values really are. But once I'd done that, I also had to return home to put the full picture together. I had to take everything that I had learned about myself and marry it with the very core of my identity that I was never going to be able to run away from. And one of the things that I realized when I did that returning home and marrying what I'd learned and what I'd always been, marrying those two things, and one of the things that I realized I was going to have to marry up was that I could not bring myself to change my name if my parent weren't okay with it. I don't, advocate for this for anyone else if this is not your own personal values, but my personal values. I just couldn't stick to a name that both my parents had not agreed on or accepted or said, okay, yeah, I can call you that. But over Christmas, just gone, I was in the car with my mum. She picked me up here in Te Papaioea, Palmerston North, and drove me back to her place in Otaki. And we had a very long, deep, most meaningful conversation about my gender and about trans identities and queer identities and our whānau, all of it together, this really meaningful conversation. And in part of that conversation, she suggested Lou as a name. And yeah, Lou is what she'd always wanted to call me right from the very beginning, but she was a young first-time mum and she kind of got peer pressured out of it, but she's kept it as a pet name my whole life, so I've been being called Lou always. It's just that it's only ever been a pet name used by close family. But it wasn't until this Christmas, it wasn't in that same conversation in the car, it was actually a few days later on Boxing Day, I think, and she was reiterating it, and or maybe I was asking a question about it, and then she told me the story of where she got the name Lou from, that she had wanted to call me right from the very beginning. And it turns out that this story was the final piece of the puzzle that I needed to be able to land on this name and say, that is who I am. So not really even a deep and meaningful reference, but it was an old TV Western that was on TV in the late 80s and early 90s. It was called Young Riders. It was about, Wild West cowboys. And the character Lou McLeod is actually a young woman who pretends to be a man so that she can be a cowboy. And just that character being described, that nuance of blurring gender binaries, that tenacity that it takes to do something like that, the boldness and the determination, I think that's something really worth aspiring to. And I of course see some connections between the character and myself. But yeah, that was the last piece of the puzzle that I needed, apparently, because I sat on it for a couple of weeks, and yeah, then I have been ever since then slowly disseminating the news that, hello, my name is Lou. I've changed it, we'll be changing it legally, and yeah, this is me. I needed a name that was androgynous. I needed that for myself, and I needed a name that my parents would accept. I needed a name that had some deeper meaning to it, and this name just, it all fell into place, and it fits me more perfectly than a glass slipper, to be honest. It doesn't even feel exciting. It doesn't feel scary. It just feels calm and right. So yeah, my name is Lou. That's what I'm called now, but it is always who I've been. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever it is. I will see you in the next one. Ka kite.